Fact: children who cannot imagine different scenarios for their lives live a mundane existence. I want to speak to the parents in the audience. Are there any parents in the audience? Perfect. My years as a high school teacher taught me that it's not the learners, nor the teachers, or even the school, but it is the parents that hold the power to bring change. I've seen children who can't do basic mathematics. They can't read. They can't think outside the box, and they have no dreams. And yet, as far as I know, every parent wants their child to have the best dream. So how do we fix this? The problem we have in South Africa is that we focus too much on skill building and too little on dream building. Before you can teach a child a skill, you must first give them a dream to believe in. And once they have that dream develops into desire. And that desire makes them chase after the skills necessary to make that dream a reality. So, we must first build dreams. Personally, I'm a dreamer. I have big dreams for myself and big dreams for the world that I live in. And one of the reasons why I have such big dreams is because at a young age, my mother introduced me to fantasy fiction. Reading about these worlds that might exist and these creatures that could possibly exist, it started to build in me a what-if mindset. What if these things were actually real? What if? And this what-if mindset is exactly the type of mindset that every innovator should have. Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Charles Buerta, Raphael Rabana, Mark Shuttleworth, Mark Zuckerberg, all these people are well-known innovators. All these people have what-if mindsets, and all these people love reading fantasy fiction. They love it. And if we want to create innovators like these, we must first start by building a what-if mindset in our children today. But I want to share with you one sad fact of the WCD school system. Beyond grade 4, there are no fantasy books in the prescribed literature. None. Just take a moment to think about that. Beyond grade 4, there are no fantasy books in the prescribed literature. Now, when I say fantasy, I'm not talking about those books that teenage girls read on Wattpad. Some of you will get that joke later. I'm speaking about books that use intricate world building to create a fictional universe. These types of books, when you read them, it forces you to think of scenarios and possibilities outside of what you can only imagine. And the fact that we have taken this out of our schools tells me we have replaced those kinds of books with books that teach you about what is instead of what could be. And that is sad. And so on that note, I want to share with you 3 ways in which reading fantasy fiction actually promotes innovation. Number 1, reading fantasy fiction promotes creativity. And when you promote creativity, you promote problem-solving skills. Because you are forced to suspend your belief of what is true, and you must think of the impossible as possible. And that's an innovator. Number 2, reading fantasy fiction improves cognitive function. You start to think quicker. You start to think more expansively when you read fantasy fiction. Readers of fantasy have also been shown to be more empathetic because you are introduced to characters and creatures that you are not familiar with, and you need to learn to accept them. And finally, number 3, reading fantasy fiction builds mental resilience. Obstacles, roadblocks, these things are seen as challenges instead of stop signs. And that's how an innovator thinks. Because when you read these fantasy books, the heroes in this story are always facing a challenge that they must overcome. And that is how an innovator thinks, to overcome challenges with mental resilience. Parents, the future of our children are in your hands. Did you know that parents have a right to decide what goes in the curriculum of our schools? Did you know that parents have a right to decide what their children are being exposed to? Did you know that parents have the right to decide what goes in the prescribed reading list of our children? Did you know that? Parents, if I want to identify how tall a building will be, should I not start by looking at how deep the foundations have been dug? We take the same approach with our schools. We first fix the primary schools. We first build a foundation of dreams and desires. And once that foundation has been laid, now we teach them the skills that they need to chase after those dreams. Parents, we need to make sure that schools and other educational institutions start to recognize the importance of fantasy fiction. How do we build dreams in a cost-effective way? Fantasy books. Because when you read fantasy, it builds that all-important creativity problem, that all-important problem-solving skill, that all-important proactive thought pattern that you need to become an innovator. And if we can make this one small change of putting fantasy books back into our schools, it will be the catalyst in creating the innovators of our future. Thank you.